We begin today the Gemara on Daf Chof Ches Amud Aleph, 4 lines down from the top of the Yomud, where it says Ela Omar Rava. So we went through in this Gemara on Daf Chav Zayin a long discussion where the Gemara was asking whether Simanim is Dairaisa or Midrabanan. The fact that you return an Aveda with a Siman, is that learned from a Pasuk, or is it Chachamim that instituted this? And the Gemara wanted to say that it's only Midrabanan, but the Gemara tried to explain why would Chachamim institute to do such a thing. If you're returning something with a siman, while it may be a gain for the person that's getting it through this siman, but if a siman is not 100% reliable, so then the true owner is losing out by Chachamim instituting this. So why would Chachamim institute such a kind of thing? And especially the Gemara really had a problem regarding when you find shtaris, when you find documents of loans that could be very valuable. There's a lot of money that could be collected in this loan. And the loiva and the malva are arguing. The lender and the borrower, they're arguing, who should we return the shtar to? And it says that you return the shtar to the loiva if he has a siman, or to the malva, that is. You return the shtar to the malva if he has a siman. But the question is, you're relying on a siman, and now you're giving the malva the ability to collect with the shtar the loan, and he may be collecting this loan a second time, and the loiva is not happy about this, because he claims that the siman doesn't mean that it's his. So why would Chachamim make such a takana? That was the Gemara's question. So therefore here the Gemara concludes, Ela Omar Rava. So Rava answers and says, so we must say, Simanin da Eiraisa. The source of the fact that you return an Aveda, when this person provides you with a siman, it's Menatayra. And we learn it from the Pasuk, the Chsiv, the Pasuk says, V'haya imcha, keep this lost object with you, Adrei shechicha isai, till your brother demands it from you. What do we learn from here? Why does the Pasuk have to say, you only return it when he demands it? Would you think that you give it to him before he claims that it's his? Ella, rather what it means is, Darshehu, you should interrogate him im Ramayu, Ramai. You should figure out if he's a thief or not, if you have a suspicion about him. So how do you interrogate him? Salav, don't you think it means bisimanim? You ask him to provide you with a siman before you return it to him. So it's from this pasuk that we learn out that we see this is the source of the concept that returning an aveda for when a person provides a siman is menatayra.
So the siman is the darshayu?
Yeah, that's how you darshayu through a siman. When he provides a siman, that's how you find out that he's not a ramai. We'll see. There's more about this. Let's see. So the Gemara asks on this. Amar Rava. Now Rava said. First the Gemara brings. Rava said, Im timtzaloimar simanim dairaisa. If you'll say that providing a siman, you return it to him, that's menatayra. So now the Gemara wants to continue what Rava said, but the Gemara immediately interjects and asks, Im timtzaloimar. Rava here is saying, if you're going to say that simanim is menatayra, hapashat le simanim dairaisa. We just resolved and said that Rava said simanim is menatayra. So the Gemara explains, no, even though Rava said so, but the source that he brought from the pasuk is not necessarily a clear source. Because we could say that this pasuk where it says that you have to be doidishim to see if he's a Rama or not. So the Gemara before already brought this, and Chav Zayin Amud Beis, and there the Gemara answered and said there's another way how to figure out if the guy is a Rama or not. You have to ask him to bring Eidim to prove that this Aveda is his. Not you can't rely just on a siman. He has to bring Eidim. So therefore the pasuk that Rava brought is not necessarily a good source. And the Rishayim then add, even though the Gemara before here, and Chav Zayin Amud Beis and Chav Ches Amud Aleph here explain that the Gemara had a hard time understanding why would Chachamim institute to give back with a siman if there's no pasuk for this, because it could end up being a loss for someone if you're relying on a siman. If the Torah says you shouldn't rely on it, so the Gemara never answered that. But nevertheless, still we see here in the Lashon of the Gemara that it's not necessarily 100% resolved that we must say that simanim is menatayra, even if we don't know the reason why Chachamim would institute this. But it's still in the pasuk we don't have a clear source for simanim, and even if we don't have a clear explanation why Chachamim would institute this, it's still possible that Chachamim would institute the inyan of a siman. That's what you see here. Okay, but the Gemara now goes on to what Rava intended to say here, that if simanim is menatayra, then the halacha would be as follows. Simanim v'simanim. What's if you have two people that are giving a siman for an aveda? Who do you return it to? So the halach is in such a case yaniach. You have to leave this aveda until the Eliyahu Navi comes. You can't return it to either one of them. Simanim ve'edim. If one of them is providing a siman and the other one brings witnesses that it belongs to him, you nasan l'bala edim. You give it to the one that is bringing edim, that it says the edim are much stronger than a siman. There's a discussion in the Shainim. There's different types of simanim. The Gemara before on Chav Zayin said there could be a siman muvak if you have a very clear and strong siman. Some Shainim say that a siman muvak is actually better than Eidim. Another case, what happens if you have simanim v'simanim ve'eid echad? Two people provided a siman, but one of them also brought an eid echad, one eid that belongs to him. So the Gemara says in such a case, eid echad command the lessay. The eid echad that this one person brought is worthless, and therefore v'yaniach. Like we said before, if two people bring simanim, you just leave the aveda. You can't return it to either one of them. So here as well there's a discussion in Rishayna. What happens if just one person brings an eid echad, that this item belongs to him? Do you return it based on the eid echad? Many Rishaynim hold that you do. The only reason here why the eid echad is worthless is because the other person has the siman. What happens if eidei arige ve'eidei nefila? One person brings eidim that he's the one that wove this garment, and the other one brings eidim that it fell from him. Tenasan le'eidei nefila. You give it to the one that has eidim that it fell from him. The one that wove it, it wasn't necessarily his. I mean, even if it was his, he could have sold it to someone else, and now the other person that it fell from him, that's who it belongs to. And therefore, min shachrin and afal, it fell from someone else. Midas arkai or midas rachbai. One person is giving a siman by providing the length of this object or of this garment, and the other one the width. Tinasal and midas arkai. You give it to the one that gives you the measurement of the length, which is more difficult to know. The measurement of the length. The measurement of the width is something that in a talis you can estimate and see. A person that wears something, you can sort of estimate what its width is, but the length is harder to figure out. So you give it to one that gives you the length. The Gemara here says this: the midas rachbai sheyurika mishayla. The width, the size of the width is something that you could estimate, even if it doesn't belong to you. Kad mechasi la when the owner is wearing this, the koi, and he's standing. Midas arkai loy mishtayla. But the length of it is not as easy. You can't be mishayir it, can't estimate it. So therefore, you give it to the one that gives the length. Midas arkai, midas rachbai. One person is giving you both the size of its length and also the size of its width. And the other person is giving you a midas gamov. The other person is giving you midas gamov, which means he gives you the total size of the length and the width, but he can't tell you exactly separately what the length is and what the width is. He just gives you the total. Rashi here says the word gamov. Gam is a letter, a Greek letter, which is made like a chof, like a langa chof. So it's the length and the width. So a person gives you the size of both length and width together, but he can't break it down. Can't break it down, the length and the width. And the other one could break it down. You give it to the one that gives you the length and the width separately. Midas arka, midas rachbai. One person gives the length and the width, and midas mishkalaisav. Another person gives you the weight of this. So the yinasal midas mishkalaisav. You give it to the one that gives you the weight because that's much more difficult to know. Who I misimani a get? Speaking about a case where a get was found, and the husband is giving you the simanim that this get is his, and he never gave it to his wife, and he says it fell from me. V'hiya met a simani a get, and she is claiming and giving you a simon for the get, and she says that the get fell from her, and she already got the get. She's divorced. You nasan you give the get to her, and the reason why you give it to her is because the husband would know the simanim even if he gave her the get already. But he knows the simanim because he had the get before. But if she's giving simanim, how would she know the simanim if she didn't get the get from him yet? So the Gemara now explains, B'mai, what are we talking about? What kind of siman regarding this get are we talking about? Are we talking about the length of the get, of this document, the paper, or or the width of it? That shouldn't be any siman at all, because Dilma Bahadi did not get lay. Maybe when the husband was holding on to this get, Chazise, she saw the get in his hands, and she's able to estimate its length or width. Ella nekav yeshbay b'tzad is pliny. What we're talking about over here is a siman that she says, I know that there's a hole in this get near this particular letter. That's a very good siman, actually. That's called a siman muvak. So in such a case, we give it to her, as I mentioned, because how would she know the siman if she never received it? Another case regarding a get, if this get has a string attached to it, and he gives the siman of the length of the siman of this chut, of this string, if we hear and she gives the siman of this string, you give the get to her. So the Gemara explains regarding what siman of the string we're talking about. B'mai. What's the siman of this string that both the husband and the wife are giving here? If it's identifying the color of the string, whether it's white or red, that's not a siman that we should give it to her at all. Even while the husband hold on to this get, she saw its color. Ella b'midas arkai. We're talking about the length of the string. The length of the string, even though before we said the length is something that you could maybe estimate when someone else wears a garment, but over here, the length of a string which folds up. So if she knows the length of this string, we give it to her. Another case regarding the get, hu aime b'chafisa. The husband says that I kept my get and you found it in a chafisa, which is this little container that's made up from the skin of an animal. V'hi emeres b'chafisa, and she also says I have the same siman that it was found in a chafisa. Yunasan loy, you give the get to him. We don't trust, we can't give it to her and say that she was divorced. My time, why? Because maybe yada, because it could be that she just estimates and knows the choma de islay. Everything that her husband has, he keeps it in this container. So therefore, it's not a sim in the fact that she could identify that it's kept in this container. Somebody Shainim say that it's the same thing the other way around. That the husband knows that whatever the wife keeps, she keeps in a container, and therefore there's no reason really to give it to him either. When it says that you give it to him, it really means to say you can't give the get to her to say that she's already divorced. And when you give it to him, you can't use this get anymore. You can't. So it goes both ways really. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah, Va'ad Masai Chayev Lahachriz. The mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda, which includes the fact that you have to announce the Aveda. Until which point, how much do you have to announce this Aveda? So the first opinion here is, Ad Kedeshiyedu B'Shchenov, until the neighbors will know about this, which the Gemara will explain. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says, Shalish Regalim, you have to announce it for the following 3 Yomim Tovim, and this is in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, when people came, or Eile Regel, in Yerushalayim, all Yidden were there, so you have to announce it 3 Yomim Tovim, and then Va'acha HaRegel, also after the Yom Tov as well, HaRegel HaAchra, the last Yom Tov that you're announcing it, Shiva Yomim, you continue and wait and announce it for 7 additional days. Why 7 days? Kidei Sheyelech LeBeisai. So a person that hears about this Aveda that was found should have the time to go back home, Shleisha, and that would take him 3 days to travel home, V'yachzu Shleisha, and to return 3 days, and then V'yachriz Yom Echad, and then this person should be able to come and say, yes, I lost this item, and then a person that found should hear him announcing that he lost this item and return it to him. Sagt the Gemara Tana in a Braisa we learned Shchenei Aveda. When it says in the mission you have to call out, you have to announce this Aveda for the neighbors to hear, it means the neighbors of this lost object. So the Gemara explains, what does that mean? What did the Braisa mean? The neighbors of this lost object. Does it mean, like it would sound like superficially, that it refers to the neighbors of the owner of this Aveda? But that can't be, because if you know who the owner of this Aveda is, go and return it to the owner. Why are you announcing it? Ella says the Gemara, what it means is you announce it in the place where you found the Aveda, that the neighbors in that area should hear that you found this Aveda. No. According to the first opinion, Slav Dafka in Yerushalayim, it's in the place where you found the Aveda. Rabbi Yehuda says that you announce it for the 3 following Yomim Tovim, and then the 7 days afterwards. And the Mishnah said to give the person the time to travel home 3 days, come back 3 days, and then announce that yes, I lost this Aveda for 3 days, for 1 day that is. So that's 7 days. So the Gemara asks on this, I'll ask you from a Mishnah Masechta Tainis, where it discusses when you start saying to Saint Talamotar in Eretz Yisrael. So it says there, the first opinion is on the 3rd of Cheshvan is when you begin asking for rain, because that's when people are already home, traveling back from being Oile Regel. Rabbi Gamliel says no b'zayin boy. You have to wait until Zayin Cheshvan. This is 15 days after the Yom Tov. Why is that? So the last year that's traveling all the way to Nahar Paras, furthest away, should make it home and shouldn't get poured on by the rain. This is the famous Gemara that the Rebbe spoke about many times. You see over here the Avos Yisrael you have to have, even if you need the rain for your own field, but for another Yid not to get wet, you're not interested in davening and make another Yid wet. But the point is, what do you see over here? That it takes 15 days to go home and to come back. How are we saying that it takes only 3 days there and 3 days back? Rav Yosef answers, Loi Kasha, there's no contradiction here. The Mishnah in Tainis is talking about the first Beis HaMikdash. Here, though, we're talking about in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. And the Gemara explains, in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, the Nefishi Yisrael Tuve, there were many more Yidden that were living here in Eretz Yisrael and all around, spread out. As it says, Yehuda v'Yisrael Rabim, that in that time period, the Yidden were so many, like the sand by the ocean. L'roiv, that's how many Yidden were. So therefore, Yidden, there was so many Yidden that was spread out so far, Be'inun Kulahai. So you need 15 days to be able to travel all the way back to Nahar Paras. The Mikdash Sheni, however, in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, Yisrael Tuva, there's not so many Yidden. The Chsivbu, the Pasuk describes in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash how many Yidden were there. Kol HaKol, the entire congregation was Ke'echad, all Yidden together was Arba Riboy, which is 40,000 in Alpaim, and another 2,000 in Shleish Meis V'Shishim, and 360. So it's much less Yidden that are living, so they lived much closer together. Loi Be'inun Kulahai. So therefore it only takes 3 days to give time to travel home and come back. Abaye asks on this answer of Rav Yosef. But Vaksiv, even at the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, the pasuk says, when Yidden returned to Eretz Yisrael, Vayeshu, HaKoyanim, Valavim, V'Agoyme, the Koyim and the Levim, and V'Amshayrim, V'Ashayrim, the Levim that sing and close the gates in the Beis Hamikdash, V'Chol Yisrael, and all Yidden that returned, where do they come back to? Where do they settle? Be'oreim, in the same cities that they lived in before. So what you see is that the Yidden, even if there were much less, but they settled, spread out in the same cities that they were before. So it should still take 15 days to get back home to the same places where they were before. Now, Abaye continues, V'kivin da'achiyu, since this is the case, that they lived spread out, Ipchem istavra. So the answer, to explain our Mishnah and the stira to the Mishnah in Mitainis, you would actually, it's logical to say that the answer is the opposite. Mikdash Rishayin, in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, the Nefishi Yisrael Tuve, where there are so many Yidden living all along the way until Nahar Paras, the Mitzavis Alme, so Yidden are traveling together, they're not traveling alone. It's better to travel together. And therefore there are many caravans of people that are traveling together. So when you travel many people together, and you're not afraid of the danger of traveling all day and all night. The Ozli Bein B'Yimam, Bein Belelia, they travel daytime and nighttime. So they believe in Kulahai. You don't need so much time to be able to get all the way home. It just takes 3 days. Visagi B'Tlasa Yema 3 days. However, Mikdash Sheni, in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, where you don't have that many Yidden, so therefore they're not traveling 2 or 3 or 4 together. So you don't have caravans that you can travel with them, both day and night. You're going to need much more time. You're going to need to have time, even 15 days. The Rishonim here point out, the Rishonim point out that over here it comes out that it's not just double the time, it's much more. From 3 days, you jump to 15 days. So it must be that the difference is not just whether they travel daytime or nighttime, even during the day, they travel slower, they stop earlier. When it gets already closer to the evening, they stop already in the afternoon. It takes 15 days to get back home. That's what the Mishnah in Tainis was talking about. Rava gives a different answer. Doesn't make a difference. There's no distinction whether in the time of the first Beis Hamikdash or the second Beis Hamikdash. Even if it's true, like it says in the Mishnah in Tainis, that there were some Yidden that lived very far out, all the way till Nahar Paras. But nevertheless, this mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda, where Chachamim instituted that you should remain for another week to announce it, they were matriach to such an extent that you should have to wait another 2 weeks till he goes home, then 2 weeks till he comes back. That would be a month that you would have to wait there. So Chacham were matriach to this extent. They were matriach that you wait there 7 days. Amar Ravina said, Shmamino. From our Mishnah, we could learn out ki machris. When you announce an aveda, how exactly do you identify this aveda that you announce? Glima machris. You identify the aveda what it is. You say, I found a shirt. Because if you're going to say that you don't even identify what you found, you just say, I found an object, and that's it. So then, you would have to add here a day to what the Mishnah said, that the person travels 3 days, then he comes back 3 days, and then he has another day to say, yeah, I've lost something. But you would have to add a day. Why would you have to add a day? Because if the person that's announcing that I found an Aveda, and you're not even identifying what that Aveda is, the person travels home, has to look through all of his objects, everything he owns, to see if he lost anything. So therefore must be glima machris. When you announce exactly what it is that you found. You found a shirt. So in such a case, the person gets home, he looks in his closet, are all my shirts here? Did I lose anything? No, so he can go right back. Shmamino, so you see from here that when you announce an Aveda, you identify exactly what it is that you found. Rava disagrees. Though Rava says you could say that you announce only the Aveda that you found something. You don't announce what it is, because even though we said that you would have to give an extra day for the person to look through all of his items, but as we already pointed out, Chachamim were matriach for you to wait until the last person goes to the Nahar Paras, so they were matriach for this as well.
What's the meaning of announcing in Yerushalayim? The person who lost it
but maybe someone that was passing through, maybe someone that was traveling. So in Yerushalayim, when all Yidden gather, so even someone that just traveled through here, he's present in Yerushalayim and he'll hear it. The Gemara is going to get back to this shaila here regarding whether you announce an Aveda or you announce the exact item that you found. But for the Gemara first brings a Braisa here explaining regarding the Yomim Tovim that you announce. Tana Rabbanan and Braisa we learned Regel Rishain, when it's the first Yom Tov that you're announcing the Aveda, Oimer Regel Rishain. So you have to announce and make it clear that it's the first Yom Tov that I'm announcing. Regel Sheni, if it's the second Yom Tov, Oimer Regel Sheni. You say that it's the second one. Regel Shlishi, when it comes to the third Yom Tov, Oimer Stam. So then you just say, I'm announcing it Yom Tov now, and you don't say which one it is that you're announcing. And so the point is, the first one and the second one, you announce the first and second, so the person that thinks that he might have lost something like this should know that he has a chance to come back the next Yom Tov. So, okay, but the Gemara asks though, why when it comes to the third Yom Tov do you just say Stam? Why by the third Yom Tov do you not say that this is the third Yom Tov that I'm announcing this, so the person should know that this is his last chance? Answers the Gemara, if you say the third, you say a number, the number, someone could confuse it, he might think that it was the second, and therefore you don't want to announce any number. If you don't announce any number, there's nothing to confuse. He'll know that if you didn't announce a number, it means the third. In fact, the Gemara say, if so, Sheni Nami, when you're announcing the second Yontif, so if numbers are confusing, so you announce the second, he might think it was the first. So the Gemara says, well, even if you confuse that, it's not an issue. He's going to come back the third time, because if he confused it with the first, that is, he's going to think that it's the second, he'll come back anyways. So he's not going to give up to demand and to ask for his Aveda. In the beginning, the way we described here in the Mishnah regarding announcing a lost object, so that was as follows: anyone that found an Aveda, he would announce it 3 Yomim Tovim, and at the end of the last Yom Tov that he was announcing, Shivas Yomim, he would remain another 7 days, as the Mishnah said. That was in the Beis HaMikdash. After the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, may it be rebuilt speedily in our days. Hiskinu, they instituted, they instituted that you go to shul, in a shul wherever all Yidden come to daven and gather, that's where you announce the Aveda. But then, when you had the Anosim that would grab away this Aveda, and the Gemara will describe in a second what this is, Hiskino, they instituted, you just let your neighbors and your friends know about this Aveda that you found, and that's enough. Now, what does it mean when you have these Anosim? The Amri, they said, Aveda that any lost object, Lamalka, has to be confiscated and given to the king, to the government. So then they didn't announce it in public. And the Gemara brings a story. Rabami found a vessel that was full of golden dinarim. Chaziyahu Barnash, there was an individual or a Roman that saw him, the commercius, that he was very afraid about this, that it's going to be taken away from him. Amalei, he told him, don't worry, even though I saw you, Zilshkol and Nafshech, I won't say anything. You can keep it for yourself. The Lav, Parsoi, Anan. I'm not from the Persians, the Amri Aveda Salamalka, that confiscate and say that an Aveda has to go to the government. We learned Even Tayin Haisav Yerushalayim. There was a rock that was called Even Tayin. This was a tall rock in Yerushalayim. It's called Misha Avdulay Aveda. Anyone that lost anything, Niftan L'Sham, he would go to this rock. Anybody that found an Aveda, Niftan L'Sham would go to this rock as well. The one that found would get up and announce that he found something, and then the person that owns it would give the simanim for it, and that's where he was able to get his Aveda. Like a Shabbos Aveda. Yeah. This is this Even Tayin that is mentioned in the Mishnah in Tainus. This is the famous story of Chayni Amagel. When he rained, he went into a circle and then it began raining, such a heavy torrentious rains that the people were telling him that it's Reiv Teiv, it's too much good. And then Chayni Amagel said, go to see by that tall rock whether the rains already went to such a point that the rock is it's above the rock, or already the rock is dissolved. Regarding returning a lost object, Omar Esa Aveda. If a person comes and identifies and says, this is the Aveda that is mine, and just names and identifies the Aveda, but he gives no Velayam doesn't give any Simonim, you don't return it to him. Now, a person that's a Rama, you're suspicious that he's just a Ganev, even if he gives you Simonim, you still should not return it to him. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Adroish achicha isai. What does this mean? Ache tidroish es achicha. You should interrogate your brother if you're suspicious. Sim ramai, or if he's a ramai, you're not, or man a ramai, or if he's not a ramai. So that means even with a simin, you don't necessarily return the aveda to him. So Itmer, now based on this Mishnah, the Gemara comes back now to the Shaila that we asked before. When you announce that you found something, how do you announce this? So we learned the machlekes about this. Rav Yudah says, Avedis amachris. You just announce that you found something. You don't identify what that is. Rav Nachman says, Glima machris. No, you identify it. You say, I found a shirt. Rav Yudah says you announce just that you found something, you don't identify. Because if you identify what it is that you found, we're concerned that there may be a ramai that can utilize this. He knows that it's a shirt. He might figure out some kind of a simon and he'll be able to collect it and take it from you. Rav Nachman says, no, you could announce exactly the shirt that it is that you found. Because l'ramai lechashinan, we're not going to be concerned about the ramai, because them can't ein l'dav v'seif. Because if you're concerned about the ramai, ein l'dav v'seif, even if you're not announcing exactly what it is, you just announce, I found something. Maybe a ramai will find a way to figure out what it is that you found, and will get it from you. So we can't be concerned about a ramai. So now the Gemara says, let's see what it said in our Mishnah here. Tanam, the Mishnah said, Omar es aveda. A person is coming to claim that this object belongs to him, and he's only identified the aveda. But now he didn't identify any simon that's his. You don't give it to him. So now the question is like this: if you're going to say that when you announce, you just announce that you found something, but you don't identify what it is, so then hakamashmal, and then we can understand what our Mishnah is teaching us. When you announce that you found something, you didn't even identify what it is. And this person comes along and says, I lost a shirt. So now he's identifying the shirt. But nevertheless, the Mishnah teaches the Chiddush, Kiloi Ama Simonim. But if he does not give you a simin, you don't return it to him. But if you're going to say that when you announce what you found, you already identify what it is that you found. So then what's the Chiddush of our Mishnah? Omar Iyu Glime, the one that announced it, already announced that he found the shirt. Va'omar Iyu Glime, and the person that comes and claims it's his, is saying, yes, I lost the shirt. Is it any Chiddush to say, do you have to teach Kiloi Ama Simonim, that if he's not giving a simon, that you don't return it to him? Of course not. He didn't say anything. You said you found a shirt. He says it's my shirt. Why should you return it to him? So Amar Rav Safra explains that no, we could learn the Mishnah a little different, and it's not a question. Really, I can tell you that the one that announces identifies the shirt that he found. But what the Mishnah meant to say is as follows: Amar yu glime. Person is announcing that he found the shirt, and the person that comes and claims that it's his is giving a certain siman. But what did the Mishnah mean when it said that he didn't give a siman? What does it mean he didn't give a siman? He didn't give a proper siman. What the Gemara here means to say is he gave a siman like it's a red shirt, it's a white shirt. Those are not simanim that are identifying the specific shirt. There's many red or white shirts. So that's what the Mishnah meant to say, that he didn't give a proper siman. Then the Mishnah said, "V'haramai." When you have a ramai, a person that you're afraid that he's a ganev, af b'sham siminar is a little like, even if he's giving a siman, you don't return it to him. So Tal Rabban and Abraisi we learned, but Ishayna in the beginning, call me shavd le'aveda yinois simana v'noitla. A person that lost something, he would provide a siman and you would give it to him. Mishrabu aramon. Then when you had people that were ramon and they went and they would find a way how to give a siman, and they would claim an aveda that wasn't theirs. Hiskinu, they instituted that you would have to say to this person that claims that it's his, bring me witnesses about yourself. Who are you? Bring me witnesses that you're a trustworthy person. Then you'll take the aveda with the simonim. And the Gemara brings a story that happened. Kiha the avua the Rav Papa. The father of Rav Papa, irches lechamra. He lost a donkey. Vashkechua, and it was found. So they came in front of Rabbi Barav Huna, and the father of Rav Papa was claiming that it's his. Amalei, so Rabbi Barav Huna says to him, Zil Aisi Sadi, the Lav Ramayat. Go bring witnesses that you're not an Ramay, that we can trust you. And then then you'll get your donkey with the samana that you provided. Azal, he went, Aisi Sadi. He brought witnesses to testify about who he is. So now, Amalahu, Rabbi Barav Huna turned to the witnesses and was questioning them. And he asked the witnesses, Yadi'itun Bey de Ramay hu? Do you know about this person that he is a Ramay? Now the Edom misunderstood exactly what he was asking. Amrulei, so the Edom answers, we know yes that he's a Ramay. So Amalahu, so the father of Rav Papa turns to the Edom that he brought to testify that he's an honest person. Anara Mana, you're testifying that I'm a Ramai. Amrulei, so the Edom responded and said, no, they misunderstood. Anan lav Ramai atka amrina. We thought that he's asking, can we testify that you're trustworthy? We thought that he's asking us, are you not a Ramai? That's why we said yes. Rabbi Baravona said, Mistavre, it's probably true that these Eidim, a person that brought witnesses to testify about himself, he wouldn't bring witnesses to testify that he's a Ramai. So probably these Eidim originally meant to say that he's not a Ramai. Rashi explains that if not for the fact that we have this assumption, then there's a klal regarding Eidim, Kivin Shehigid, Shuven Echayzer Magid. Once they said he's a Ramai, they can't then say, oh no, we meant to say he's honest. But because it's clear that they misunderstood the questioning, so therefore we say that they can now retract what they said before. If you found an object, you found an animal, and this is an animal that has to eat. Now the person found this, he's going to have to now feed it. But it's something which also could work for you. It could do work, it's an ox, it could do work for you in the field. So then, so let it work for you, and then it eats also. Okay, so the point is, in such a case, when you're going to come to return it to the owner, you're not going to say to the owner, pay me back for all the food that I fed your animal. And if it's going to be over a period of time, you might charge him the value of what this whole animal is, and the owner gets nothing because it worked for you. So if it worked for you while it was eating, so then you'll return it to him and you're not going to charge him anything. But if it's something if it's something that does not work while it eats, so then you're going to feed it all this time until you return it, and then you're not going to give anything back. You're going to say, I'm not giving it back to you unless you pay me back all the money that I spent on feeding your animal. So over here, you sell it, and then you have the money, the value of this animal, and that's what you return to the owner. Shenema, the pasuk says, you return this object to the owner. What do we learn from this? Pay attention, think of what the right way of how you should return it to him. Don't give it to eat, and then you'll just return it to him, and you'll say, oh, you owe me half of the value of this animal, because I already fed it half of the value of this animal. Now, what's with this money here that you have now, if you sold it, and now you only have money that you're returning for the owner? What's with this money? Rav Tarfon says, you could use this money. And therefore, this money that you have now that you have to return to the owner, you're allowed to use it. If it got lost, it's your responsibility. Rabbi Kiva says, you're not allowed to use this money. Therefore, if it gets lost, it's not your responsibility. Okay, this last machlekes here, the Gemara will explain barichas. Okay, but let's just see for the first part of the Gemara here. The Gemara explains this halacha regarding an animal that could work while you're feeding it, and an animal that you have an aveda that cannot do any work for you. So the Gemara says, the first thing the Gemara addresses is, when you're holding this aveda for a person, you're taking care of it, you're feeding it, forever you have to hold on to aveda when nobody claims it from you? How long do you have to feed it for this person? So the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, ad yud beis chaydish. 12 months. That's how long you have to take care of it. That's mitzvah v'shavas aveda, hold on to it for 12 months. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned in the Braisa as well. Koldava sha'isa v'oichel. You have an animal that can work for you, but it also eats. Kagain, para, a cow, or v'chamoyer, a donkey. Metapel ben ad yud beis chaydish. 12 months you have to take care of it. Nikan ve'elech. After 12 months you don't want to take care of it anymore. Sham demeyan. You evaluate the money and you sell it. Umanichan, and then you leave the money and you return it to the owner. But up until that 12 months, Rashi before the Mishnah says, the mitzvah of Shavas Aveda is to give back the object itself, the behemoth itself that you found, because the owner wants to have back that behemoth itself that he got used to using. So you shouldn't give back just money. But after 12 months, then you give back just money. Okay, now the Gemara here brings other examples of animals that cannot work for you. Agolin, calves, and siachin, which are, what's siachin over there? Donkeys, which are small donkeys that cannot carry anything and do any work for you. So, metapa ben shleisha chadashim. You just feed it for 3 months. And you're going to feed it 3 months, but don't feed it longer than that, because then you're going to charge the owner that you return it to for all the food that you fed it. So just 3 months. Then the kan ve'elech, after that, shom demei, you evaluate its money and you sell it, umanicha, and you put the money aside. Havazin v'tarnagoylin, if it's geese or chickens or hens, these are zecharim, these are males that cannot lay any eggs and you have no benefit from it, you just have to feed them. Metapo b'em shloishim yom. You take care of them for 30 days. And then after that, sham demein or manichan, you sell it, you leave its money for the owner. Again, what?
doesn't charge for a few months.
Could be he does charge for those few months, but for that short period of time, the fact that you're charging him that little amount of money is not such a loss for him. But longer than that, you're going to end up charging him the whole value of these animals. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says if it's a tarnagoles, it's a chicken that she can lay eggs, then kibehemagasa. It's just like this large animal that could do work for you. Over here, this is a case where you feed it, but you also have the benefits of the eggs that it lays. Tanya Namiyachi, we learned this in a Braisa as well. Tarnagoles ubehemagasa. When you have a tarnagoles and a behemagasa, the same thing. Metapel behem shneim osachaydish. You take care of it for 12 months, and then mekan ve'elech. After that, sham demeyen. You evaluate its money umanichon, and you leave the money for its owner. Now the Braisa here goes through also what it said in the previous Braisa. Agala musyachin. When it comes to calves or small donkeys, metapel behem lamed yoim. You take care of it for 30 days, and then after that, you leave the money for, you have to sell it and leave the money for the owner. Here it said 30 days, before it said 3 months. The Gemara is going to address it in a moment. Avazin v'tarnagaylim, when it comes to these avazin, tarnagaylim, the geese and the chickens that do not lay eggs, and anything that you have, that taking care of it is going to be more value than any work or any gain that you could have from it. You just take care of it for 3 days, and after that you sell it, you put the money aside for the owner. So the Gemara here asks, we have a contradiction in the amount of time. So Kashya, not as a contradiction here in these two braises, Agalim Usiyachin, Agalim Usiyachin. In the first braise it says regarding Agalim Usiyachin 3 months. In the second braise it said 30 days. And Avazim V'Tarnagoyim is also a contradiction. The first braise said 30 days. Avazim V'Tarnagoyim, in the second braise it said Avazim V'Tarnagoyim is only 3 days. So the Gemara answers, Agalim Usiyachin, Agalim Usiyachin Lekashir, regarding the calves, these animals that don't work, there's no contradiction regarding how long you have to take care of it. It depends on the situation. If it's a case where you have very easy place for pasture for these animals to go and graze and eat from the grass, so then it's not costing you a lot of money. You have to wait 3 months. But in a case where you have to fatten these animals, you have to feed them, so then after 30 days, then you can you give it up, you sell it, and you keep the money for the owner. Here it's also not a question. If it's large geese or large chickens, in such a case it's just for 3 days. And if it's smaller ones which eat less, so then it's 30 days. Okay, one more thing over here on this subject. If it's something that cannot work for you while it eats, so then you sell it and you don't make the loss for the owner when you return it to him. Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa, we learned the source of the pasuk that the Mishnah brought, return it to its owner. Make sure that you could actually have something to return to him. Don't give food for this egel that's the value of the entire egel, and then when you come to return to him this calf, you're going to charge him the value of the entire calf. You don't have anything to return to him. Or siach l'siachin, or you're going to give to eat the value of an entire small donkey for a siach, or avazin, v'tarnagol, and the value of a geese or of a chicken. So the Marsha actually says the pshat on this braisa over here is, let's say you found 2 calves, and you're going to sell 1 calf to be able to feed the other calf. Or in the other cases, similar. So in such a case, you're taking away the entire calf from him because you have to feed it. So that's what the pasuk is saying. No, make sure you have what to return. And if you're going to have to feed, so sell it off so you don't have to feed, and you'll have the money that you'll be able to return to him.